Well, hello. In this part 2 of running an LCD screen, I want to show you the software that you would write to control the LCD screen. In part 1, we talked about the hardware. And in part 1, we mentioned that we were going to have the data going to port D, and that's 8 bits. And on port C, we're going to use just 2 bits for the control, and those are bits 5 and bits 4. They're for the enable, and the other one is for the data or instruction. So when there is a data, we're going to have this DI value a 1, and if there's an instruction, the DI value will be a 0. And the enable is the line that latches the data or the instruction. I've already started the software, as you can see. I've got a main program and I've got a subroutine that I'm going to use. Here's how I envision writing this code. First of all, with the LCD, we need to initialize it. And to do that, we need to do 3 things. So here's my thought. We're going to call a subroutine called LCD, and we're going to pass to it some values, and those values are going to be a 0x, 0f, semicolon, and there's 2 more, so I'm going to copy that line, and the next 2 values will be a 3c, and then we're going to have a 01. These 3 values, when they're sent to the screen, not as letters but as controls, or I should say instructions. Let me say it that way. We're going to send them as instructions, and the first one as an instruction means to turn on, which of course we want to do that, and then the next instruction is to use 8 bits, and our port D is 8 bits. Then thirdly, we're going to clear screen. So those 3 values, when sent to the LCD, will do those 3 functions. And then later on, after the screen is ready to go, all we need to do is say something like this: LCD, we're going to send the letter A, and the letter A will show up on the screen. Well, now your question is, well, how does the computer or the LCD know whether the value that's being sent is to turn on, which is an instruction, or if it's the letter A? Because the letter A could be written as this, 0x41. That's also an A. So how does it differentiate between an instruction or a letter? So to differentiate between these different things, data and instruction, I'm going to use another value here that's going to be the control, and I'm going to type in a 0b, and I'm looking at the line a few above here where it says E and DI. I know I want this first 3 to be an instruction, so I'm going to use a 0, 0, 0, 0. That one I just typed, that 0 right there pertains to an instruction. 1, 2, 3, 4. I do believe I have 8 zeros right there. So I'm going to use that same bit pattern in the next 2, because they too are instructions. Okay, but then when we get down here to display a letter, I do something different. What I do is I put a 1 where the DI is, which is going to be, let's see, 7, 6, 5. Right here, that bit needs to be a 1, and upon doing so, that will make the DI wire a 1, which means that, hey, we've got data here instead of an instruction. So that's how the computer is going to know whether we have an instruction, as the first 3 are, versus a letter to be displayed as the 4th one is. So when this calls the subroutine, it's going to put the first bit pattern into the control, and it's going to put the other value into the DI value. Let's come down here and write the subroutine to work on this information. So in the subroutine for LCD, one of the first things we have to do is to set the control lines into port C. So we're going to take the value of the control and we're going to put it into the port C, and we also need to make sure that the enable is high. So we're going to AND this with, it's an OR, because we want to set the enable to a 1. So we're going to OR this with the bit pattern 0B 0010 1 2 3 4, and that 1 that you see there is in the position for the enable. And now the port C will have a high on the enable, and the control value will be whatever is being sent to it. Next, we're going to send to port D the DI value. Then, quite possibly you might want a small delay here. I'm not going to put one in, or maybe I will, I'm not sure yet. But then after that, you're going to have to say to port C, we need to drop the, let me see if I type this in, control, and we want to drop the enable line, and to do this, we're going to AND it with 0B 0, that'll drop it right there. We want to keep the same line we had before for the DI value, so I'll put a 1 right there, and 1 2 3 4, okay, and then a semicolon here, and then hit enter, and then I'll do a delay 1 millisecond, which hasn't been written, and I want this to compile, so I'm just going to comment it out. Now there's a small chance that you might need a delay here, right before here. It wouldn't kill you, but I think it works quite well without it. So the subroutine is pretty much set, but I do need to copy the first line and paste it for the main as a prototype, and we put a semicolon right there. The other thing that you may have noticed is that the data direction registers are not set up, so I better do that. The DDR-D is equal to 0xFFF. This will make all the bits of port D an output. Also for the DDR-C, we're going to have 0B, and we have to do the E and the DI pins as out, so it's going to be 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. That will do that. And we should build it just to see if there's any issues. So I think that will do it. We have the prototype, we have the main program, which sets up the DDR Ds and Cs. We're calling a subroutine. We're passing to it either a letter to print or an instruction to do. And preceding that, we're sending the control, and the control will have the value for the whether it's a data or an instruction. The subroutine picks that information up, and it makes sure initially that the enable is a high, presents the value on port D, it drops the control line, at which point the LCD works. We delay for a millisecond, and that last delay you have to have there. And then it comes back to the main program and does the next bit of whatever. You can certainly put this into a loop, and also it would be good to use equates or number defines instead of the constants that I put into the program as shown.